President Biden is on the road to pitch his plans for jobs and families directly to the American people. Today, the president is celebrating the 50th anniversary of Amtrak in Philadelphia. His proposals would drastically boost funding for public transportation. Yesterday, he laid out his plans in front of a crowd in Georgia. CBS News' Deborah Alfarone has more.
President Biden is hitting the road again today. This time he's headed to Philadelphia to celebrate Amtrak's 50th anniversary. But the train station also makes a good backdrop as he tries to sell the American public on his plan to rebuild America's infrastructure.
It's a once-in-a-generation investment in America. It's the biggest jobs plan in this country since World War II.
The president kicked off his road trip with a drive-in rally in Georgia Thursday, where he also pitched his American Families Plan that includes universal preschool, tuition-free community college, and expanded child care benefits.
How are we going to pay for that? Well, it's real simple. It's about time the very wealthy and corporations start paying their fair share. It's about time.
While the president is showcasing these plans to the public, he's also putting pressure on Republicans to join him. But so far, they remain steadfastly opposed to the large price tag and raising taxes on the rich.
It's been a very radical agenda, and I don't think it's supported by the American people.
The president invited West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito, who is leading infrastructure negotiations for the Republicans, to the White House.
What are they prepared to consider in terms of what constitutes infrastructure, how much of it, and then we can talk about how to pay for it.
Senator Capito tweeted out a picture of her on the phone with the president and said, "We both expressed our mutual desire to work together and deliver results for the American people." Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
Shaniqua McClendon is the political director of Crooked Media and joins me now from Los Angeles. Shaniqua, hi, great to have you with us. So what do you make of the way the president is pitching a vision? Oh, great to have you. The way the president is pitching a vision for expanding social programs to an American public that until relatively recently has been somewhat skeptical of bigger government.
Yeah, I think he's doing an absolutely amazing job. Something that we didn't have happen before was the COVID-19 pandemic. I think a lot of people now are really starting to understand just how important government is and how important it is to have a social safety net when things that you don't expect happen. Over the last year, people who never thought that they would lose their job, never thought that they would be facing what a lot of low-income Americans face every day have actually had to encounter that, understand, how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to keep a roof over their head. And so his presidency is coming at a perfect time, an unfortunate time, but a perfect time for him to really make the case for government providing that type of safety net for people who need it all the time, but a lot of people who never anticipated that they would need it.
Yeah, and something really struck me in the president's address Wednesday, and that was his appeal sort of directly to working class and middle class Americans. Let's listen to how the president pitched the American Jobs Plan to those people he thinks might feel lost and forgotten by the economy. Let's listen.
These are good paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
So, Shaniqua, it really strikes me how President Biden is painting himself as a real pro-labor, pro-union president, because we have seen how Democrats lost some ground when it comes to unions in the past few elections to some of the cultural issues that Republicans were able to sort of capitalize on. So, when you see the president here doubling down on these economic issues, do you think he's responding to that, that fear, or that, not necessarily that fear, but that, the sense that the Republicans are gaining that populist ground that the Democrats always owned?
Yeah, absolutely. And something that Democrats have not done a good job with is actually making sure that those folks are taken care of. And I think that's why Democrats started to lose ground with these voters. And then Republicans were right there to pick them up. Now, where Republicans failed is they made a lot of populist promises. But then when you actually look at the policies that they're put forth and passed during Donald Trump's tenure, the policies don't bear out to what they promised. And so now Biden is kind of bringing Democrats back to their roots and saying, like, we have these jobs. We have, good government is here to make sure that you have access to well-paying jobs and that you can return to the middle class. But not just saying that, actually delivering the policies to do that. And so we saw that with the American Rescue Plan. We're seeing that with this American Jobs Plan, and an even greater expansion of that with the American Families Plan.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing sort of the president's, almost 50-year political career kind of coming to roost in some ways in his policies here, because he's making clear that he is, committed to making sure that Democrats don't lose the typical mining town, working class union voter in the Rust Belt. He's going to fight for those voters. And I think that's an interesting position, because you don't hear a lot of progressive Democrats talking about that demographic specifically. And that, to me, is something that's very characteristic of the Biden administration. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I would also say that Joe Biden has also, he's speaking directly to those voters that you don't often hear progressives on the far left speaking to. But I think he's also spoke very specifically to a lot of the Black and brown voters who have been very dismayed with the Democratic Party. He spoke about racism in his speech on Wednesday, and he specifically called white supremacy terrorism. And he understands that these things that he's pushing for, they don't just help white working class voters. These policies, they help Black working class voters, Latino working class voters. They also help people who are extremely poor. And so Biden is talking to everyone, and that's what he campaigned on. He wanted to be everyone's president, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, but everyone's. And he's speaking to everyone with these policies. So I think, there can definitely be an argument to be made that, he's singling out these voters, but I think he's singling out all voters and making them feel very welcome in the policies that he's putting forth and who he wants to help.
And so do you think that those progressive Democrats who were, not so thrilled about Biden's nomination, or he was not their first choice, how do you think they're feeling now at this stage, 100 days into his administration?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. As we watch these policies get rolled out, we continue to see progressives pushing and wanting Biden to do a lot more. I think a perfect example is the American Rescue Plan. We saw that Biden actually did include a push to increase the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to $15. And there were some Senate Democrats, a lot of procedural issues too with the parliamentarian, but ultimately Biden did not choose to override the parliamentarian who said that the $15 minimum wage hike could not be included under a reconciliation bill. And, we didn't really hear much else. He is the president, and so I think that he can push his party on these things. But it's clear that, there are a handful of Democrats that we still need to understand why they are not for raising the minimum wage to $15. And generally, I think, nothing will ever be perfect. I think progressives are pleasantly surprised with what they've seen. It's a lot more than a lot of them anticipated during the primary, when we saw a lot more progressive candidates running against Joe Biden. But Joe Biden has done a really great job of listening to progressives, incorporating these policies into his policies. But there's still more to do. And I think you will always hear that from people who are agitating from further to the left. They want to push him to do all of the things. We saw the debate around that is still ongoing around student loans. It's 10,000 what he is constitutionally able to do, or 50,000, and then who gets access to student loan forgiveness if that's something they decide to do. So there's will continue to be disagreement, but I think, as we saw, and I keep referencing this, the American Rescue Plan, it was a very, very progressive bill. I think it was more progressive than most moderates were expecting themselves to, moderate Democrats to vote for. But at the end of the day, Democrats like different things. It's a big, inclusive party, but they come together and pass what's necessary to help the American public.
All right. Well, Shaniqua McClendon of Crooked Media, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.